Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of 12 Million. I am Daron Jenkins,
I am Akbar Majid.
and we are fortunate to be joined by a director, producer, writer who, as I dig and learn more about her, I'm just like blown away. Melissa Haizlip, producer, director, writer of the film Mr.SOUL. Melissa is an award-winning filmmaker based in New York, whose current film, Mr.SOUL, to date has received 33 nominations, won 19 awards, including 14 film festival awards. Woo! I mean, there's a lot of goodness going on there, and we are so happy to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so wonderful to be able to chat with you guys. And yes, we are out here in these streets.
Which is the way it should be.
Festival streets.
You know, it was funny because I actually saw Mr.SOUL, the show on Amazon Prime first. I was just on there kind of trolling around looking for something good to watch and came upon it. I was like, wow, this is really good. I didn't know there was a film. And then I kind of started to look at, I wanted to learn more about him. And then I just started, and it expanded. And I was like, oh, there's a film. I'm like, that makes a total lot of sense.
That's so cool that you discovered it through the series first, because
oh yeah,
I usually say to people, like, this is the greatest show you've never heard of. And
that is absolutely true.
You know, kind of like reverse engineer it and try to explain what this show was and who the man is that created it. But that's really great that you found the series first, because the series is just a gem, you know, and to think that it was in the archives for
it's like looking at Black history happen right in front of you. And it made me think of my mom and my father thinking, oh, this is probably what they were watching, man. They were watching this, because I guarantee they were watching this.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It was like what we call now must-see TV. But at the time, there was nothing to see, you know? And so when there was a Black person on television, it was like, Black's on TV, Black on TV. And everybody would come running from wherever they were to get to see this rare opportunity of just the Black experience on television, which really wasn't welcomed during that time, you know?
So like Daron mentioned, so you're a producer, writer. So where did it all start? Where for you? Like, I mean, did you grow? I mean, you grew up in a household that was very educated, very cultured, very conscious. But where did it start from you? Did you always have a passion, a love for filmmaking, or?
Yes, I did. But I also really wanted to be a performer. You know, I was exposed to the arts early on. Ellis Haizlip was my uncle, and he was like my spirit animal, my cultural ambassador. You know, he took me to shows. He took me to Broadway. He always knew everyone. So we were going on stage, and, you know, I got to see The Wiz, believe it or not. But it wasn't seeing The Wiz. It's let's go on stage and meet The Wiz and see the trapdoor where Eveline went down through and just, you know, melted into the floor. And these things just blew my mind when I was a child. He exposed us to everything, you know, taking us to see Luther Vandross at Radio City with the Cheryl Lynn tour, you know, and there was just so much culture that seemed so expressive, and I connected with that, and I connected with him. And so he really encouraged me, out of all the family, which wanted me to go the, you know, straight and narrow path, academics, lawyer, whatever. And I just kept getting pulled to this world of the arts where I felt at home. So I started dancing, singing, and, you know, performing at an early age, and had a whole nother life as a career in Broadway and theater myself. So that kind of rich understanding of performance and the arts and the sort of Black Renaissance that we were coming up after, what had come up after the, you know, original Harlem Renaissance, and then this sort of new age of Black excellence that came through the 60s and 70s with soul, and realizing that, you know, we had a legacy to uphold. And after a while being in the theater and being in film, I realized that there was a larger stories to tell that I didn't see being told. And I thought, there are these voices that aren't being represented long before the idea of diversity, inclusion, and equity, the DEI catchphrase that we use now. Before that, it was just a lack. It was a dearth, if anything, of opportunities, not a lack of talent. And certainly there are plenty of hidden figures everywhere, but we just didn't have the opportunity. And it occurred to me that wouldn't it be so much more interesting to share, to get on the other side of the camera and be responsible for pushing the culture forward, just like my uncle did, in the 70s. It felt like it was time to shift the narrative around our own agency and the importance of telling our own stories. And it was quite a struggle for at least a decade. Now things have changed significantly, even just from last summer. And it's long overdue, So we really need a moment right now to celebrate our greatness and our Blackness, and not necessarily be focused on, all the things that have held us back, but it's really time to move forward. And I think we all feel that.
Definitely. So your first two film projects, one, I guess you produced and directed one. I guess the first one was You're Dead to Me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one was Contact High, Visual History of Hip Hop.
Yes, that was so great for everybody. I'm a big hip hop head, huge hip hop fan. I'm actually working on another project on hip hop right now.
Yeah.
Women in hip hop. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, before you can say another word, I literally was listening on Spotify to this one playlist, and it was like this underground hip hop, and I would say a good half of the list were women, and I was just like, where is the documentary talking about that? Because there are so many amazing rap artists, DJs that are women that I'm just like, damn,
It's a story that needs to be told. And, there's so many stories like this, but it's so important that Black women are having their say right now and demanding to take up space where we have been all along. But the contributions that Black women have made to the culture, to hip hop as well, to that culture, but all of our contributions have been overlooked or underappreciated, certainly. And it's just really exciting to have a moment to kind of counteract that narrative and take up our space and tell our stories and be our authentic selves. And that's important in hip hop too. So it's interesting that for so long, especially in hip hop, the narrative has been, that it's very male dominated, male oriented, hyper masculine, and that women were just there for one or two things. And I'm just really happy that is changing now, and that women are finding their own strength, and that the new hot girls are taking their own lead with their sexuality and their boldness and their bravery. And it's really invigorating to see.
Yeah, and I'm glad somebody's taken up that story, to kind of tell it and give because when MTV was around and then Video Music Box, you got to see some of it, right? Not as much as there was, or not nearly as much as there was.
Right, but it would always be a sidebar,
Exactly.
One woman on the side. It's Queen Latifah representing all of us, and that's
one at a time. Right.
Or who's in the
now
video?
There's no music video, right? I mean, there's no music video platform really anymore, so you don't really get to see them unless they release their own videos somewhere.
Exactly.
So that part of, that kind of kills me as far as music is concerned, as the overall concept anyway. But it hurts them, I think, even more so, because we don't get those shows. We don't, your uncle, as I watched the film, one of the things that just jumped off to me about him was he didn't, a lot of times when you get TV programming, they try to do what's politically correct, or they try to do what the programmers want you to do.
Yeah.
he evenly showcased women and men and different things, which from a television standpoint was kind of risky, but
very risky. Because I remember that the quote unquote equality or equal footing, or yes, there's still wage gap and everything, but that really wasn't the case in the years from the 60s onward, certainly not before that, even coming on the tail end of civil rights movement, the women's liberation movement. All of these movements were kind of coalescing at a time to push the culture forward and give everybody their space and recognition and freedom, and the opportunities that we take for granted now that I'm sitting here talking to you. Even, women didn't even have a voice back then, and certainly not Black women, who were always left out of the story or left behind, or all of the stereotypes that were limiting us. So it's really unusual to look back at this wonderful archive and not only appreciate it for this gorgeous quality and that it is a nostalgia piece, but to really see the beginnings of Black pride as seen on television. Now, we've always had pride. We've always had love for each other and our communities, and we've had our differences and our struggles and varying degrees of wealth and struggle, and but to see that on television at a time when representation wasn't even an opportunity, that's what's remarkable. To see these people taking up space and being completely unapologetically Black, and understanding that we have a world that's complicated and wonderful and challenging and beautiful and really, really complex. And that to see that all the variety of the Black experience on television, that was revolutionary.
Another thing I noticed was, when you get to when you're talking about, dance and poetry, usually it's associated with a class structure,
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, like this idea of culture.
That struck me as very...
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I'm going to let you start over again. Wait, let me just turn this off real quick. I beg your pardon.
No worries.
I have people trying to reach me right now. Sorry about that. I'll just turn this off because it has a new trick it does. It rings in the computer.
Nice.
Totally busts you. Gives away everything. Okay, let's start again.
I guess my point was that, usually with that kind of content comes a class structure to it.
Yes.
Even within white neighborhoods where, poor people don't get exposed to that kind of culture. What I loved about him was his ability to not think of a class structure, and to just imagine this guy sitting in the audience who just got off work from cleaning dishes and came here to this experience and was able to expose himself to a higher form of art. I just thought was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and Ellis Haizlip didn't sort of segregate the arts in terms of one thing being more high culture or low culture. All of it was representative of Black culture, the sacred and the profane. The rituals of church and the spirituality and all kinds of spirituals and gospel choirs, but also extraordinary spoken word and Nikki Giovanni, the last poets. The importance of all of these clashes and all of these pieces of the quilt that make up the fabric of our culture across the diaspora. We are not a monolith, and Ellis welcomed all of those different sides of the equation and of the conversation, because that's more representative of who we are. And to have these sort of iconoclastic moments between, let's say, Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin, and that they can still find community in being Black writers, in being representing the Black culture, Black love, Black strength, Black sister and brotherhood, Black descent. as well as agreement, and that you can see all of that taking place on the same stage. I think that was really refreshing and surprising and very bold, very, very brave, to take a chance at really having a full spectrum of the Black experience, and not trying to codify, or this idea of giving value to one thing over the other. Who's to say that modern dance isn't as important as ballet? And that's why we were able to support Alvin Ailey and also, Dance Theater of Harlem. But this was fighting against a culture, a more dominant culture that was saying Black dance isn't art, or Black expression isn't worthwhile. And so this sort of ascribing value to Black culture was the fight that he was constantly in, to say, we're not here to be patronized or to be judged or to be qualified or quantified. This is the full Black experience, and we welcome you to share and enjoy it. But we're really not here for you. We're here for ourselves, and we're not here to entertain you, which is what Black culture was really, dominant for back in the day. So it was really an independent shift away from an outside definition of self, and encouraging African Americans to see this new moment of, really trying to understand and redefine ourselves on this new Black American landscape.
So how long did it take you to put this together, right? So I know.
Oh, it took a minute.
It took a while, right?
You grew up in this, right? And being a part of this, on a daily basis. But what inspired you to say, this deserves its own documentary, right? Its own piece. What inspired you?
A couple of things, actually. Number one, I'm always attracted to ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And sometimes it's those people that you don't see who are really shifting and pushing the culture forward. Or it's the underdog story, or the fish out of water story, and the ripple effects that can happen when you have a visionary who believes and loves his people. That to me was a remarkable story, and that you had this kind of unsung hero in Ellis Haizlip, and you also have now, in our point of view, 50 years later, this kind of show that somehow got lost or that was abandoned, that nobody knew about. That really is a wonderful entry point, because we already know what happened to Stevie Wonder and Earth, Wind and Fire, Arsenio Hall. And so, but nobody has really thought about that origin story, and that we do have an origin story, and that we're not just here because of enslavement or here to be defined by others, that we are innately beautiful, innately powerful, and innately expressive. And to see the naissance of Black critical thought and beautiful poetry and expression and the freedom of expression, and it was just mind-blowing to me. And then I was thinking ahead that so many of these African-American icons of the 20th century were becoming mature, and that we would lose them soon, and we wouldn't have their stories to tell. And so it was a combination of trying to illuminate the life and work of Ellis Haizlip and really explore this critical moment of Black power and expressionism, and try to use that to see how far we've come, how far we have yet to go, to understand and celebrate our Blackness, and to really give us a reason to, to just see our greatness. And, we're living in a moment that is so fraught, and especially now, after the pandemic, and, rest in peace, all the souls that we've lost. But we have all emerged from a great struggle, and it's so similar to the struggles of the past. It feels like we're almost reliving what happened, almost 50 years ago, granted, with another large-scale, medical crisis on our hands. But to me, it was really, really, really important to be able to look back to understand who we are now, and to see this legacy and realize that we are all part of the legacy, and we are all Afrofuturists who have to take this story of our people and move it forward, you know. That was really weighed heavily on me. And also the fact that it was just such a gorgeous visual testament, like a time capsule, that it was hard to imagine that nobody had, you know, that it would go unseen, that it would go unnurtured. It's really important for us to tell our own stories and to find ways to build our own legacy, and often reimagine, but also readdress the structures of the past that have held us back. And I think we're finally starting to do that. And I'm hoping that this film can be like a cultural, like resetting the cultural narrative in a way, because you get to see how fabulous and gorgeous and wonderful and brave we were. And, you know, we need real voices like that now. We need heroes like that right now. And we need to see ourselves in that right now.
It's, you know, it's funny, you know, watching this, you know, my mom passed away some years ago, but, you know, after, you know, when she left and we had to go through her things and stuff, we would discover all these, like, these treasures from that we didn't know about, like pictures with her and Cicely Tyson and Andrew Jackson. I mean Andrew Andrew Young. Sorry, yes. Brain fart. And you know, all these different celebrities, and it was just like, what? Wait, what? Who was my mom? But,
what is your life?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm just, it just blows me away. So many people, but I think, you know, that was because that it was just different, where how you, in like, when you connected with another person during that time, it was much more personal. It meant more. It was, you know, it was about being Black. It was not about, hey, I need this job. Can you hook me up? Hey, man, you know, I'm looking to raise money for my business. Can you hook me up? It was about sharing, like bonding over the experience of being a Black person in that time.
And, you know, we were also part of a larger movement at that time. It felt like we've been a little bit fractured until the galvanizing moment of, you know, our dear George Floyd's untimely death, and Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and we, the ripple effect of that sort of cultural uprising and racial reckoning gave us something to realize that we had suppressed for so long. But 50 years ago, you know, it was so real because we had just not lost, but the same kind of inciting incidents when you think about it. You know, they killed Medgar, they killed Malcolm, they killed Martin. And all of that trauma was something that was so visceral and we were reacting to back then. And in a very similar fashion, but a modern way today. But we didn't have social media back then. We didn't have these connectors. And so what we had was each other. We had our church, we had our faith, we had our Blackness, but our Blackness, we had to fight to feel and to be, you know, determined that our Blackness was beautiful. And so when you look at this show, Ellis Haizlip was having a love affair with his Blackness, with our Blackness. And you can see that. And the audacity to be free enough to recognize that. There's so much self-love there. And we tried to imbue this sense of love and worth in the film. And so you could feel that you could feel the energy coming out of the television when he says, you know, if you would place your hands on the television, I hope you can feel the vibrations we're giving out tonight. I hope you'll be able to deal.
So dope.
That
was incredible.
That's my favorite line.
Made me want to lay my hands on TV. I was like, where's the TV?
I know. And so, you know, that feeling of the beauty of, we all have something in common. He says, we're all Black. And that's something that we can understand. Imagine hearing that on national television.
Yeah.
You know, that was
even today.
mind-blowing.
Even today, I think even if he were to say that today on TV, I think it would resonate like a wave, just a shock wave going across the country.
Yeah. Oh, he knew exactly what he was doing, even though he was very dapper. And of course, he was a queer man, so he held himself differently. And, but he, as Ellis Haizlip said it was Harold Haizlip says in the film, he could just be so debonair, sitting back and smiling and being so nice, but he was hurling bullets. And I just love that line. And also, it just so evocative and makes you recognize that there's so many ways to be a revolutionary. You can be quiet as well. You can change perception. And he was in the business of changing perception of African American culture, saying this is beautiful, this is value. We don't need to ascribe value because it's already innately valuable.
Right.
And that was really empowering and uplifting at a time when it was so necessary. Lift every voice and sing, and coming out of Selma and everything else that happened. It's just, we as a people have been reacting to trauma. Trauma is in our DNA, through our generations, since the first African was taken from the shores of Africa,
Right.
And so we have this innate ability, though, to be joyful. And we wanted to center the film in Black joy and the awareness of the fact that, yes, we do have joy as much as we have pain, and as much as we have had to navigate these hardships and these cruelties and these deaths and loss. We have a beautiful sense of joy and a great depth of power within. And just to have that kind of encouragement, that is what moves the people. That is what's powerful. People don't talk enough about the power of love that the Black Panthers had. The threat wasn't so much the guns as it was galvanizing people with love.
Right.
Love for their children, love for their communities, love for each other, It's again, that just has to be redressed through another set of eyes to understand. There's a great series I've been watching that literally destroyed me, but right around a couple of weeks ago when I realized it was on, it's a series called Exterminate All the Brutes by Raoul Peck, who's the same director who did the James Baldwin piece, I'm Not Your Negro.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And what it does is it readdresses this idea of white supremacy coming all the way back, going all the way back to before slavery and to the conquerors and to the colonialism and this false narrative that was set up that way, and how that has impacted all the people of color and the extermination of people of color in this country. It is mind-blowing. And it's just another perspective. And we so often, again, talking about critical race theory in school right now, we don't have the diversity of eyes through which we're being taught, through which we're seeing media. All of that needs to change. The structures around how we're learning and what we're seeing. So that's the importance of telling Black stories, through a Black lens, with that kind of experience and lived experience and authority, and not, somebody watching from afar. So yeah, if you get a chance, check it out, but be ready and have that Kleenex ready.
I think that's very important, right? Is telling our own stories and understanding our own value in that. And
how much Black joy is necessary. It's right up there with self-care. These are words we toss around so freely right now, but it's really very important. And that's what's inspiring me to make the work I'm making right now, centering Black joy and uplifting BIPOC stories, because it's just time. It's really time that we nurture ourselves as well. It's important. So being Black important.
Yeah. For those of you who just joined us, you're listening to 12 Million, and our special guest today is Melissa Haizlip, writer, producer, director of film Mr.SOUL. So one of your other interviews, I heard you say that this film is a love letter to Black culture. So the kind of continuation of the piece about love. Can you expound on that a little?
Absolutely. You know, there's so many times when you look at media and you look at the way we have been depicted, there's again a lot of trauma, a lot of beautiful stories that are very sad stories where you see horrible things happening to Black people. And it's very difficult at this point to keep sort of imbibing this narrative over and over and over, that we have to be beaten and broken and discriminated against, and you know, that the breakdown of the culture and what it's doing to the Black body, that is debilitating. And I thought it was just really important to show that there is so much love that we have for ourselves and for our culture. And when you pull it all together to see, sometimes you just have to find a way to frame it. And one thing we wanted to show was that this burgeoning Black experience and Black individuality, and not exceptionalism, but really community building and institution building, which was very important to Ellis Haizlip, Black institution building, that this was in response to so much degradation and so much difficulty in our lives, that we wanted a chance to share just the beauty of Blackness and the love we have for ourselves and for each other. And so when you sort of cumulatively look at this work, it's one thing to be really nostalgic and love the afros and the high heel shoes and the great songs that we grew up in, but there's something else that you see there. You see this truth and this resilience and this inescapable Black pride and Black love. And why not have a Valentine to that? You know, why not have a love letter to us? Because we deserve it. And I really felt it was time to make a film that way, that was positive, uplifting, inspirational, intellectual as well. It really spoke to the interiority of Blackness. We don't see that a lot. And, you know, we see the representation on the outside. We see everybody, you know, looking fly and on Instagram, you know, blinged out, and everybody has the grills and all the designer goods, and that's fantastic. You know, that hip hop also is a very aspirational culture, but there is this inner beauty and this inner truth as well. And when you see the expression of Black lives and Black culture coming through these artists, you realize that we have been doing this for years, generations even, and how important that is. And yes, you see the last poets who are the grandfathers of hip hop, right? And you start to put the string of the legacy together, and you see that Black seeds keep on growing. And that was a theme in the film as well. So we just really wanted to show that, and to be a light, and to show the light that we have, and so to inspire us to keep going. And you know, this legacy of soul, and this idea of Ellis Haizlip really was like an Afrofuturist, and he saw the betterment of our people, and he always wanted the better thing, or the better opportunity, the better gig, the better outfit, whatever it was, the better platform for our artists and pushing them forward. Oh, wait, what's this? We can't have black people in Lincoln Center. Well, let's change that. Let's have Soul at the Center, which he produced, which was taking all of the artists who had been on television and doing, believe it or not, the first collaboration between Lincoln Center and the Black community. Okay, the first time we were kind of allowed in these hallowed spaces. And he created a 2-week Black Arts Festival that happened 2 years in a row. And some of the artists were even bigger than the ones you saw on television, who needed a bigger audience. Like one year it was opened by Ike and Tina Turner. And then the next year was opened by Nina Simone. I mean, it was just amazing. And this idea that we deserve to be here and take up space in these hallowed halls like Lincoln Center, and we deserve to be ourselves as well. We don't have to fit in. We're not a minority of a larger nation. We are a nation. We are a nation of people. And that's a really important line that Amiri Baraka says in the film. You know, we realize that we are a nation of people responding to the times.
There's another interesting quote that it kind of goes along with that in the film that says, "We have the best of everything if we aren't thinking about money."
Oh, yes.
I love that. Yeah.
That is such a great line. And that was, by the way, all the lines in the film that you hear voiced by the wonderful Blair Underwood as the voice of Ellis Haizlip. I took all of those. Those are all verbatim quotes from hundreds, if you will, of articles, New York Times interviews, magazines, journal entries, anything I could find. You know, he didn't have social media then. So anytime he got a chance to speak his truth to power, he would. And it was really funny you could tell the tone if he was talking to like the black press, like if it was Jet or Ebony, or if it was, you know, speaking on his platitudes for the New York Times, demanding equal this and equal that. And so that particular clip, it was a particular quote rather, was from an article he did with Essence in 1972. And he was talking about his childhood and how encouraging it was. You know, most people think, oh, segregated Washington, D.C. in 1929 to 1939, what a terrible thing. And he was like, no, actually, we had the best of everything because we had the insulation of the love of our culture. We had our church, we had our concerts at the Howard Theater, we had Howard University, and we had this beautiful, impenetrable community of love and family. And as long as you weren't thinking about money, you could be completely satisfied with everything you had, which is a great analogy for, you know, the fact that we have everything we need inside and we don't need to be validated by others, especially culturally and spiritually.
It's so appropriate even for today.
Yeah, very appropriate.
Right? Is it like if we really, you know, separate the money part of it, we really do have everything we need. So
yeah. And then we could have the wherewithal to say that when he's even being nostalgic, looking back at his childhood, which was a difficult childhood, you can imagine, Washington, D.C. in the 20s, but growing up in Deanwood, which is the same park right around the corner from Marvin Gaye, and just being a part of that really tight-knit community where all the families had houses down the street. It was part of the Great Migration coming up from North Carolina and the South. And everyone they were strivers, you know, striving to make a better way, striving to make a way out of no way. And it's just so inspiring when I go back to DC now and walk those same streets that he walked and go to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. It's reaffirming to see the journey of a people, this incredible arrival that we have into our greatness, you know, in spite of, it's always in spite of, and in addition to, you know, all of the hardships that we have endured as a people. And so when one person makes it, we all make it. And I think Ellis knew that. And he knew that, you know, if one artist could make it, if he puts this kid on TV doing magic tricks, well, that kid happened to be Arsenio Hall, you know, at the age of 16. And he saw something in Arsenio, just like he saw something in Earth, Wind, and Fire and gave them their first television appearance. Yeah. He saw something in Al Green. He saw something in Ashford and Simpson, and this generosity of pushing them forward to their greatness. That is just, you know, I'm getting choked up just, you know, trying to express it. It's really special. And it is something that we do because we don't tear down. We tear down each other only when things are really hard for us, you know. But we are a people that we live and we love.
Yeah. Why do you think, like, it's funny, so the end of the movie was my favorite.
Oh.
It was absolutely my favorite because it made me think the most about his intention. Because at the end of the movie, they run out of money. He's like, it is what it is. and drops the mic and walks off the stage.
Yes.
But everybody else around him is like, "Are you crazy? What are you doing?"
Yeah.
But it's almost mind blowing. Like, I'm still thinking about this. This is I'm trying to understand it in the sense that it was one of the most brilliant moves I have ever seen a person take, with enough bravery to kind of to say that if this is the way it is, then this is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost the best way to do it, because to me it's kind of like a trilogy, right? You either get a movie where the first movie's great and you just leave it there,
Right.
add 2 or 3 more films on, and you wear it out, and the other ones aren't as good as the first one. Sometimes it's good to just let that piece of work stand to itself.
Yeah.
And for him to have thought about this, I don't even know. I don't.
And I love what you said, because I think it really does speak to 2 things. He was always walking this duality of seeing a greater world as an Afrofuturist, seeing a better place for all of us, but
Right.
also dealing with what he had at hand.
Right.
And knowing that, one thing we don't explore in the film too much, because it just wouldn't make sense in the structural narrative and the arc of the story we're telling, was that show was canceled the first year. We had to fight to get it back on the air after the first 39 episodes, even though it was phenomenal. It was canceled after the second year. He had to fight and demand and raise more money and get more grants. It was canceled after the third year and the fourth year.
Wow.
And then finally the fifth year, that's when it started trickling down from the from the higher ups there on the national scale. That we had this villain named Nixon, similar to a villain we just kicked out of the Oval. And really having a problem with radical independent thinking and Black radical thought, and especially. And so you have someone who sees the future. He also knows that where we are right now, folks aren't even ready for it. And so the idea was, I know I can't go any further. So rather than going out with my tail between my legs and trying to, one thing also we didn't talk about in the film was that they had asked him to integrate the show.
Oh, really?
And it was contingent upon him integrating the show in order to continue. And he was like, "Well, we're integrating the network, so why? There's no Black people on PBS anywhere anyway, except for Black Journal, the one other show that existed at the end. So he was like, why should I have to integrate my show when we're already integrating television?
Right.
So why should I have to lower my standards and the expectations of our people? Again, we're not here to please you. We're doing this for us, by us." And that mentality has always won. And he wanted to go out winning. And so he literally spent the entire budget that last season. You can see the show getting better and better. The guests becoming more and more, high profile. The production value,
the Al Green one was just amazing.
Oh my God. Stan Lathan is directing all the best shows. He's directing the Stevie Wonder show, the Al Green show, the Earth, Wind and Fire show. It's just through the roof fabulous. And so I think it was almost as if he was saying, okay, watch this. Look what you're going to miss, in other words. Look what you can't handle. We're going to give it all to you. And I think he just wasn't willing to compromise those standards. And he knew, there's this one line that is so poignant in the film. Every time I see it, it makes me cry. When he says, sometimes it's necessary in the evolution of things to disappear.
That caught me I was like, that's deep.
Those are his actual words, verbatim, from an article that I saw when it was in Jet magazine. And he was talking about how frustrated he was that they couldn't see the value. Again, this question of value, right? They couldn't see the value of soul. They couldn't see the value of Black people They couldn't see the value in front of them on television with the highest ratings you could possibly get, couldn't see the value of what it meant to the people. And they were so willing to just throw that all away. And so his thought was, you know what? Sometimes it's necessary in the evolution of things to disappear. In order to recognize what you have to take it away.
Yep.
And in that particular moment, and spoiler alert, if anyone hasn't seen the film.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert.
Dealing with a great loss in a tragedy in his family. That's all I'm going to say. So for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. And so I thought, wow, this is at the apex of, an extraordinary professional loss and an extraordinary personal loss, both of which something is being taken from him. It's disappearing. And having to come to terms with that and struggling, and realizing it's kind of like that day of, the day of when Black people don't do something, when we decide, oh yeah, we'll see how much you need us, the day we black out our social, or the day nobody goes to work, or the day nobody shops at Target, or the day that nobody, you won't see how much you have until you lose it.
Right.
And that was a very profound thing for him to be still upstanding, still demanding respect,
right,
or walking away.
Right.
Now compare that to, Dave Chappelle.
Right.
Similar.
Yeah,
I love to have a conversation with him, share the movie with him, Dave, if you're watching, and say, look at here was this man in the height of his career and the height of Black consciousness raising as a job, right?
Yeah.
And succeeding at it, and yet butting heads who were not willing to allow him to win.
Right.
But he was already winning. He's like, I'm going to go out winning. Right. And I like to say it's a simplified analogy, but it's the same kind of thing with Dave Chappelle. Remember when he walked away from his show?
Yep.
When he was winning.
Yep. 50 million was winning.
Terms, right?
Yeah.
And so how much did we recognize what we'd lost once he was gone?
Yep.
I feel that way about Obama, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole, We
already knew what we had when we had Obama. We didn't need him to go away to realize that. So we'll strike that analogy.
So the show ran from 68 to 1973.
Yes.
And then with 130 episodes. Right?
That's right.
Wow. Okay. So I don't know how many shows are getting that now, right?
No,
Listen, especially not live shows. And that was the problem of
he was dealing with, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah. So he was definitely
and remember, there's no precedent for what he was doing. Right. Nobody had taken all of these art forms and thrown them into like a gumbo and said, here's a show. That was not the model we knew. That when you had, not only was it a vehicle for African-American artistry, but it was a platform for political expression and a fight for social justice. Now that's everything we need right now.
Everything we always need forever.
We always needed it.
Exactly.
Why do you think
Mary Had a Little Lamb? We've needed it.
Exactly.
But we don't always get it, and now especially because of other concerns, because of the FCC, because of commercialism. Right. Unless you're on your own podcast or your own platform, or you're creating your own distribution of your work, which is what the most creative people have done, found some sort of autonomy. You're beholden to these other things that are limiting you.
Right.
So speaking about that, so you released this during COVID.
Yes. And part of the reason goes back to what we were saying earlier, is that we actually, my team and I, as was the world, especially all of anyone conscious, was really grieving, fearful, angry after what happened with George Floyd. And the movement started happening, and we didn't know what we could do. And I remember people kept saying, are you okay? And getting all of my well-meaning friends would call and say, are you all right? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? How are you getting through this? And I realized I didn't want people to ask me, how did you feel? I wanted them to say, but what did you do? What did you do? What did you do to make a difference? Were you a laptop activist? Were you on Twitter and Instagram? Were you in the streets? Were you risking your life with COVID to fight back and throw tear gas and not riot, because that's not the word, but were
Protest.
you protesting? Were you in an uprising? Were you writing, acting? How are you contributing to the change that we needed to make? And I was realizing that, well, there's a power in the art. There's art as activism. That's what I want to do. And I realized, holy cow, we have this beautiful film that is so inspiring, so uplifting, so beautiful. And we, after being bombarded by all the negativity that we were seeing and all the brutality and all the destruction of the Black body and watching a man die that way, I realized what we can do is show this film and give and remind people of their greatness, remind Black people of their greatness and give them a way to remember that Black is beautiful, that we've always been beautiful, that it's an innate character. And we thought this has such a healing quality to it, and it's inspirational and it's beautiful. This would be the perfect time to release it. And we didn't know what to do about that. Nobody really knew what was happening in cinema at that moment, especially with everything closing down and not knowing what the future held for the industry. So we took it upon ourselves to distribute it in virtual cinema at a time when nobody was really doing that, except for a couple of festivals that have been canceled. We found this new platform and called Eventive, which a lot of the festivals were turning to show their films. But our model was different. I said, no, I want to give back. I want this to be by the people, for the people, and because we're showing the movement all the way up to the present day in the film anyway. I cut in some new scenes from what was literally happening, that George Floyd and Breonna Taylor march, and it's just really important footage that was happening even in LA. And we set out to show it in 3 theaters so we could also kind of qualify for any kind of awards that were coming to help get more awareness for the film. We didn't have a distributor, so it was totally DIY. But the idea that was different was we said, what if we partner with all of our favorite film institutions, film organizations, small theaters and boutique cinemas and art houses and organizations like small museums, the Studio Museum of Harlem, Schomburg Center, that kind of thing. And because everybody's struggling and to keep their lights on and their doors are closed. So we set up all these alliances with other organizations as a profit share. So we literally split the cost of the ticket with the host of the theater. I'm sorry, of the film, with the host of the film. And what that did was we said, go out there and pick your favorite theater, the theater you would go to down the street, pick your favorite museum, pick your favorite Black-owned institution, something, Studio Museum of Harlem or anything that you believe in, and that you're supporting them during these dark times. Help them keep the lights on, and also supporting a woman of color, a Black filmmaker who's completely independent. And that gave agency to people. It wasn't like some money was just disappearing or going anywhere. It was a different kind of community experience, a community healing. And we had a lot of big free screenings. I think our biggest one was almost 1,500 people.
Wow.
And these were free communal events online where you couldn't do anything else but open your computer or watch the TV. And it was a great way to be together. And we were all, the chat was lit. We were all in the chat shouting like you would, when your favorite person came on the screen. And I'm telling you, that and D Nice and, Questlove, that got us through the pandemic. It really did, because it was a chance to come together in spite of everything we were seeing on television, people being killed and people in duress. It really meant a lot to do it at that time.
So where can the film be seen now?
Well, I have some good news, actually. As of today, this very day, we are announcing that we will be streaming on HBO Max.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's so exciting.
That is so cool.
So yes, we will have our streaming premiere on HBO Max on August 1st, very soon. And really excited to bring this film to the people. You can watch it as much as you want. And it's really exciting to be on this platform because they are really committed to showing diverse voices and really pushing for the cause now. And I'm really happy to see that in their programming, especially. It's very dynamic programming. They're pushing a lot of diverse content. They call it diverse content, but I call it our content. You can binge all the Fresh Prince episodes you want on.
No.
Doing really dynamic new programming like the rendition of the book Between the World and Me, Ta-Nehisi Coates. They did a beautiful exploration, sort of like essay, experimental doc kind of vibe, and I loved it. And so it's very exciting to be part of this new programming that they're doing.
That's so cool.
Just announced it today. Yeah. So
I got a quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So for those people who haven't seen it yet, I cannot urge you more to watch this film. So whether you go and you pay for it or somewhere to screen it, or if you got HBO Max, you watch it watch it. But my question for you was, how did you get my two favorite people, Robert Glasper and Layla Hathaway? Because it was funny. I was listening to this. I don't know. My brain just works in weird ways. I listened to this song before I saw the show, and I was like, "Oh, Layla's got a new song out. Okay, cool." And I'm like, "Wow, this is great." So I was playing that to death, and then I saw the TV show, and then I saw the film. So I kind of did it backwards.
That's great. I love that, though.
How did that collaboration and how did you get them on the project?
I know. First of all, shout out to Robert Glasper. Genius.
I love him. He is my favorite composer.
He is extraordinary. And we wanted somebody who obviously is extraordinary, but more importantly, understood this tapestry of music, because we treated the music in the film like a character. It was not, the evolution of the character of Black music, not just as a soundtrack for our lives, but really evolving and evocative of so many movements that we've been through, personal songs that mean so much, really diving deep into the precise musical moments of our lives and what that represented, what it meant in terms of our own evolution. And it was important to find somebody who totally understood that and who was versatile that way, who understood the roots of gospel, who also played R&B, jazz, funk, and could just rock anything. Right. The most extraordinary musicians as well. I knew that he was amazing like that. And I knew that he also loved to collaborate with interesting people and could bring any type of rappers or vocalists or musicians in on the job. And he certainly did that. And so his idea was to bring in Layla Hathaway for this original song called Show Me Your Soul. And I was just blown away because I said, well, she herself represents the legacy of soul. She is the first daughter of soul, as Donny Hathaway's daughter, right? But also, I always knew in my mind that we would start the film with Donny Hathaway. And so I felt that we had to end the film with Layla Hathaway to take us on that journey, right? Black seeds keep on growing. It all was very, very intentional. And so I had a meeting with a music supervisor whom I had admired and was very steeped in the Grammy situation. And I was looking very carefully at his work, and I understood that he had just worked with Robert on a project about Miles Davis.
I saw that too. That was really good.
Right. It was really really incredible. Don Cheadle produced, directed, and starred as Miles Davis. And it was not it was kind of a biopic, but was not a documentary. But I was really interested in how they were able to recreate that music and that era so seamlessly. And I wanted somebody who could understand how to build a soundtrack like that. And, Robert really is a genius. You can tell him exactly what you want. I need a little Crusaders vibe right here. And in this scene. So we literally composed the whole film in 2 days in the studio.
Wow.
With no music.
That's
there was
incredible.
Not a lead sheet in that place. I was like, who works like this?
Wow.
Who creates on the spot with an incredible team that's ready You say, I need a little bebop. I need you to go in and give me some. I need a little maiden voyage vibe here. You know, can I get a little bit here, but make sure you're heavy on the piano there, a little Herbie Hancock vibe or whatever. He would be like, yeah, we'll do some changes. Okay, good. And then they'd go in there and knock out the song in one take. And we're all sitting in the control room like, if I close my eyes, am I sure that's not Ornette Coleman?
Wow.
They're like, wait a minute. The Crusaders in there right now? Like, it was amazing because we knew we were going to be able to license certain music. Right. And then the other music we would have to create to be an underscore, but it couldn't just be an underscore. It had to mean something, and it had to evoke the songs, especially certain songs we knew we weren't going to license. And it did all the heavy lifting because it was hard enough that we had very disparate elements. Oh, that's not me this time. Nope, but maybe it is. Sorry. I turned it off. That's weird. It rings even when it's turned off. Okay.
They're trying to get you.
Let me start over in case you can edit that out. So we knew we had very disparate pieces to bring together and to sort of sew together for this film. So we had archival from another era that juxtaposed with really modern looking footage shot on 4 cameras in 6K. And then we had music, and then we had music from the show. And so what were we going to use to sew all that together so it wouldn't be jarring for the audience to sort of jump in between? Oh, wait, this is a flashback to 1929 DC. Okay, wait, now we're in the future. Okay, wait, now we're in the middle of a Black Panther moment. You know, it had to have like a sonic story as well, almost like a sonic script. And he got that incredibly. And in fact, the first time he came to see the film, we call it a watch down, where I gave him all my cues. I had actually scored the whole film in my mind and written out all the cues for every song that I would imagine would be in the film for each moment if I had $1 trillion to license them. And I laid them all into the film so you could get the feel on the evocative moments. He sat down to watch and he had his cue sheet and he was like, oh yeah, that's good. And then suddenly he jumped up and ran out the door and grabbed his phone. And I thought, oh my gosh, he must be so famous. Everyone's trying to reach Robert Glasper, And I had strategically put all the snacks on the table. I was like, what's going to keep him here? I just got to make sure I've got everything he needs, right? And still he ran out. So after a few minutes, I went out there like, is everything okay? Like, are you going to have to leave? Should we stop? And he was singing.
Oh.
He was singing. He was composing. He was so inspired by what he saw that he was singing into the phone. He was already composing on the spot.
Wow.
I'm telling you, that just blew me away. And he said, no, I was so inspired by from Jump that I had to put it in my voice notes and just get it in there, because sometimes that's how he writes. He hears things and he hears like a melody or a feeling that's very evocative and that evokes, the energy that you're trying to convey, or the story or the feelings. And he just put it down. And so that's when I knew. I was like, oh, it's on. It's on and popping.
Wow.
And so then when he brought in Layla, that was really important. Now that song had to be written very carefully because it was also the lead up to the end of the film. We knew we were going to play it at the end, but he did a lot of vignettes, sort of dropping the themes from the song leading up to that moment. So you have all of these like Easter eggs of the song, like a different variation of the song with no lyrics, until it rises all the way up with the end montage, and then boom, you land into the song. So it was really incredible. I was so honored to be there as a music head and as a musician myself, and I was also one of the writers on the song. So it was really beautiful, and was so honored that it was short. That's how we were shortlisted for the Oscars, was for Best Original Song. That was a very competitive category this year. So I ended up in the reject
Yeah.
pile with 2 John Legend songs, so I don't feel too badly.
Mm.
And I'm so happy for the people that were nominated, and of course, she won for her from the Judas and the Black Messiah,
Yep.
her song from Judas and the Black Messiah. So it was a really strong year to be in, and it was just such an honor because the women were leading in the songs. You know, it was Janelle Monáe, it was her, it was Mary J. Blige had a song, Christina Aguilera had a song, and then Layla Hathaway was in there. So we just felt it was just so exciting to be a part of that moment, even though we didn't end up advancing to the nomination. It was a real validation of the work that we had done. And the importance of Black music and how Black music tells Black stories, because it is who we are.
And it's such a beautiful song. So
yeah. So we're going to be releasing the song very soon. Very excited about that. We have a record deal.
Oh, cool.
We haven't announced that yet, but we will be announcing that very soon, probably in the next week or so.
So look and listen out for that. Right?
Yes, we're going to drop the song, and the soundtrack will be coming very soon. So we're just going through some licensing issues right now where you can figure out what you can and can't afford.
Right.
And then we'll make the perfect soundtrack. So yes, soundtracks are back, people. Come on. What I really want to do is have like I think it'll just be a soundtrack, maybe a Spotify, but we're going to do like a collector's album in vinyl.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's cool.
So maybe that'll be in time for Christmas.
I was like, I actually, after I watched the film, I went up on Spotify and was like, is there a soundtrack for this? Because I need
It's coming. It's coming. We had to get a label first.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
And it's hard to get a label right now. As you know, COVID just pivoted. We had to pivot. Everybody had to pivot. But one of the biggest, not just the music industry and artists, but imagine the actual making, the actual fabrication of music had stopped. So it was ground to a halt. People were not in factories making records, like the physicality of making records stopped. So it wasn't just the industry stopping and people not being outside and not having concerts and stuff, but the whole thing. And we were worried, wow, what is that going to mean for the future of the soundtrack, for the future of vinyl, the future of music? This has really shaken everyone to the core.
Well, hopefully we've learned our lesson. We've learned some things that we can kind of carry forth should something like that happen again. So,
well, I hope so. I think it's been a great time of reflection for all of us, and brought us more laser focused around what we need to do, not just to survive, but to be kind and to understand each other. There are a lot of life lessons during this time. And I feel that for those of us who were lucky enough and honored with the gift of life at this moment of great destruction and death, I think it's incumbent upon us, especially as artists, that we have been given this gift of living, to tell the story, and to tell the story honestly and openly and beautifully. And I'm really so excited about, what kind of art comes now, because there's definitely a demarcation point of what art will look like from the pandemic forward. I'm hoping it'll be a renaissance. It's certainly a renaissance for Black creators, because everyone's realizing, I think we've kept them out of the picture for too long.
Yeah,
you have. So if ever there were a time to be a Black artist, a Black creative, it's now. And we have to take that and run with it, because we don't know how long those doors are going to be open. But as long as they are, going to run right through.
There's opportunities for us to do our own stuff like you did, right? I mean, I think we don't have to be so codependent on others. I mean, I think there's definitely opportunities now for us to do our own thing. So. As you know, 12 Million is inspired by the Richard Wright's book, 12 Million Black Voices. So the thing that we ask all of our guests, is there a book that you're currently reading or a book that inspired you that you would like to suggest or recommend to our listeners?
I am reading several books. In fact, I have them right here. Some of them are soul related, so that's a little bit biased.
That's okay. I'll take it.
That's all right.
For those who are fans of the show, this is a great book. It's called It's Been Beautiful, Soul and Black Power Television by Gail Wald. And you can see all the notes that I've taken up there. It's the first kind of academic exploration of the series, and that has come in handy. I'm also visiting the James Baldwin biography, because I'm writing a piece on him, about him right now. And I'm kind of on the James Baldwin kick because I am actually been doing a lot of writing, and I'm writing a piece on this film, I Am Not Your Negro.
Oh, that was good. Yeah.
Trying to figure out which angle. Yes.
Perfect.
And then lastly, I want to share this because this is a rare book that is a direct result of the Soul Show.
Oh.
This is called James Baldwin, Nikki Giovanni, A Dialogue.
Wow.
What this is an actual transcription of the conversation
That was
between James Baldwin and Nikki
one
Giovanni.
of my favorite episodes. Like it's
I wanted to be a fly on the wall for that episode.
Yeah.
It was so great, and they were doing several different dialogues James Baldwin was doing at the time. Margaret Mead, I think, was a conversation, but never had he had a conversation with somebody like Nikki Giovanni.
Right.
And the show was so important to Artists on the Back
Wow.
that they transcribed it and made it into a book. This book
That's so cool.
is worth something like $4,000 right now, which is crazy.
What?
Yes, I kid you not. You can Google it.
Wow.
It's rare. You can find a paperback copy somewhere between $400 and $700. But if you see this book, y'all, grab it because it's history. And it's so exciting to think that Ellis Haizlip brought these two people together in London to discuss Black love and strength and power and community and Black authorship and the importance of all of those things. And so we do, the importance of legacy keeping, even if it's a book, is right here.
Yeah, that was I saw that conversation. I was like, who doesn't want to be in that room right now? Seriously.
Really incredible. Really incredible. Yeah. And I'm also reading Liner Notes of the Revolution by Daphne. Daphne. Oh my gosh, I have to think of her last name now. Well, read that book, Liner Notes of the Revolution. It's really wonderful.
Wow.
So this has been wonderful. This has been wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to come on and talk about soul, but also thank you for your insightful leadership and all that you do to, get our messages out there. It's really important that we have a place to celebrate each other.
Well, like I said to you in my email, this, Richard Wright.
I just remember Brooks. Brooks.
Daphne Brooks, everyone.
Yes, Daphne Brooks.
This book, Richard Wright's book and his show, were kind of inspirations in of kind of our purpose for this podcast, which is to kind of do positive stories with interesting individuals, with people who are, doing things that we should know about. And thank you for creating the film, first of all. With just a wonderful piece of Black history. And, whatever good things can happen to you, I hope it happens tenfold.
Oh,
we need more of that, of what you're doing. And when you're doing the hip hop film, when it's out, you should come back and let us.
Oh yes, I would love that. It's a 4-part series for Netflix on women in hip hop. It's really about the incomplete history of Black womanhood in America, explored through women in hip hop, their lives and their music. So it's really great. We're just, hitting all the themes, all the things.
Can't wait to see who's in this.
Oh, you can't say yes. But everybody you want to be in it is going to be in it.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
Long overdue. Long overdue.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. We are welcome back anytime. And everyone should know that they can find out more about what you're doing, stay in touch with what the film is doing at Mr.SOULmovie.com.
Yes, and we're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Mr.SOUL the Movie.
Yeah. Check it out, because actually the site has a lot of stuff up there that, like, I was watching music videos and clips. It was just a lot of stuff to just go up there and just sit there and just get lost in what was happening. So I highly recommend people go up there and check it out. And I guess that's it for us. This was a great show. I can't wait to edit it, actually.
Don't
thank
edit
you.
it. That's the whole thing.
I know. Let's keep going. This is 24 hours a day. Just keep it going. Thank you. And I am Daron Jenkins.
I'm Akbar Majid.
And this was 12 million. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.